Ladies and gentlemen, very warm welcome to all of you for today's 12th edition of the CII Western Region Conference on Infrastructure Project Management, from Manager to Advisor, Essentials for Transformation. We will be now beginning with our inaugural session. For the same, I would love to call upon stage Dr. K. Nandakumar, Chairman, CII Maharashtra State Panel on MSME and Chairman and Managing Director, Chemtrolls Industries Private Limited. Mr. Gurjot Bhatia, Managing Director, Project Management India, Middle East and North Africa, CBRE. Mr. Nikhil Bhatia, Managing Director, Capital Markets and Head Western Region Operations, CBRE. Mr. Shaishav Dharia, CEO, Townships and Rental Assets, Lodha Group. And Mr. Roshan Kumar, CII Maharashtra State Head. Requesting Dr. Nandakumar to please give the welcome address and take ahead the session, please.
A very welcome, good morning to all of you. Mr. Gurjot Bhatia, Managing Director, Project Management, India, Middle East and North Africa, CBRE. Mr. Nikhil Bhatia, Managing Director, Capital Markets and Head Western Region Operations, CBRE. Mr. Shaishav Dharia, CEO, Townships and Rental Assets, Lodha Group. Roshan, my colleague from CII, members from the industry, friends and media, and ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure for me to be in this specific session. It's a great privilege also and pleasure because, frankly, I'm not from this sector. My sector is entirely different, capital goods, engineering. But yet, in today's world, when technology is intertwined with everything what you think of, construction sector or the real estate is not far from what we do today, every day. So I would like to deal with some of these. And prior to start, I would like to formally welcome all of you on behalf of CII and on behalf of me personally to this 12th edition of the CII Western Region Conference on Infrastructure Project Management. The title of this, or the theme of the session is From Manager to Advisor, Essentials for Transformation, applicable to every sector, because you need to grow, you need to become much more involved in the project, much more involved in the construction, any sector. For over a decade, this conference has been one of India's leading platform for industry leaders to discuss opportunities, share their insights, and how future comes into this sector. In today's world of changing everything so frequently, I was just reading an article around 2 weeks back about skill development, because I was part of a skill development program in CII. Nobody is able to predict what is the skill required 5 years down. That is the technology changes. Artificial intelligence is changing so fast. Even the experts today are not able to define what skills we need after 5 years. You can imagine the technological ingredients coming into the industry. The size of Indian construction industry or market is around 640 billion in the current year, and is anticipated to have a CAGR of around 6%. So during 23-28, I am sure with that 6% CAGR, it will certainly be 1.5 times of that. Top property developers are planning launches in close to major cities as during the pandemic. But post-COVID, Indians have realized the need for bigger space and, more importantly, open spaces. Bigger space because the COVID has changed from what is physically in the office to work from home or from hybrid. Even today, hybrid has become a routine of the day in every sector, every industry. The construction sector is the second largest employer in India. and sixth largest FDI recipient sector in India in 2022, and will be third largest construction market globally by 2025. Also, the construction industry market in India works across 250 subsectors with linkages across the sectors. That is the biggest challenge. Any sector which is having more than, I would say, even 25 value chains, itself is difficult to manage. So you can imagine construction industry with 250 subsectors. I wonder how you do project management so well. And I am sure in the coming days it will become slightly much more easy, because the drones is creating challenges in that. So you can monitor the projects through drones by sitting in your office. So that, I must say, to some extent should help those challenges, especially on not only in supply chain, but also in the progress on this. Increase in population is demanding more space for accommodation, especially in tier 1 cities. To fulfill the demand, construction activities have been increased by both government bodies as well as private sector companies. In India, government is also emphasizing on the development of rural area. No doubt we need to have with 1.25 or 1.4 billion people. You can't have only on developments in the urban areas. You need to have a rural. You need to bring up the rural to that semi-urban areas. Strong and positive moments are expected to continue prevailing in Indian real estate even during these years, backed by the solid structural foundation, gain in demand, and especially availability of financing options, worldwide financing options. The upswing in the market will also stem from a favorable economic outlook. Most of the rating agencies have estimated the growth of India in the comfortable range of around 8 to 9%. This surge in commercial activities, alongside a rise in the job market and income level, will naturally translate into increased housing demand. But when that demand goes up, there are many challenges. And especially, I said, technology changes the challenge. The challenge is how do we manage, especially. And that's where the role of CII comes into picture. CII with more than 120 subsectors and having an association of council with more than 120 local various associations with more than 1,20,000 members will certainly be a major partner for each one of the sectors, especially on the construction sector. One of the challenges which is affecting is, in my opinion, will be the technology. We have come across the construction in the normal way, but the technology which is coming, which is already adopted in many places. And I would say the most challenging or most adopted one is the 3D printing. 3D printing will certainly change the construction methodologies. And I must say that one who does not adopt that technology, the future is difficult for them to sustain. So I'm really sure every construction industry, every sector, every development will pass through the technological changes and imbibe what they consider, which sector they are, will absorb. Then comes the supply chain, the challenge. Supply chain has really disrupted everything during COVID, and we are through with the COVID. Then came the Ukraine-Russia war. And that supply chain has really thrown away quite a lot of industries' operating cycle, especially on the electronics chips. Still, it is not yet normal. Even my own sector, even our own sector where we operate, we used to have 5 to 6 months. Sometimes it goes now 15 to 16 months, because in certain areas the electronic chips are still a major challenge. Along with this, one of the most important across the global for funding is the ESG. Environment, sustainability, or rather societal and governance. If we need to access global funds, we need to have compliant oriented. There is no other way we need to. So, along with the ESG, along with environment, certainly the governance is very, very important. Probably medium or small developers can still manage the societal changes. Wait for, because in a country like India, it's a big challenge is there. But going forward, ESG is going to be the major, I won't say impediment, major challenge for any industry to comply with globally and adopt that in order to access funds or in order to access the markets. Then coming, of course, environment. When you say ESG, environment today is talking of, I would say, the carbon footprints. We have looked at carbon footprint whether we can, and we have committed to carbon footprint net zero by 2070. And is it really possible to have carbon footprint? But I personally believe it's a near net zero. Because when we look at net zero and carbon footprint or carbon sequestration, we are all talking on zero carbon. But every industry there is, one is scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 challenges. Scope 1 is directly involved in scope 2 also within the organization, various sectors. Scope 3 is the biggest challenge for any sector which is not having a control. We need to utilize shippers, we utilize freight forwarding agents, or we need anybody. And how do we ensure each and every sector will have that net zero? So in my opinion, net zero is a near net zero. Everyone will say, of course, everybody accept this challenge that scope 3 challenges is very difficult. But we need to that scope 1 and scope 2 certainly over a period of time. Indian industries have certainly taken up these challenges, especially the chemical processor, oil and gas. I was reading an article around 2 weeks back about ONGC. $12 billion they need to invest in order to get near net zero in their process plants, leave alone have scope 2 or scope 3. So the challenge is to achieve that net zero. So if that is a challenge for direct industries have, look at construction industry with 250 subsectors. How do we achieve that net zero? So it's a big challenge, but it is not to discourage. But I want to throw upon the challenges that industry faces, especially on the net zero and sustainability. So need to certainly focus on how we can at least meet the challenges on scope 1, scope 2, and address scope 3 even in construction industry with more than 250 subsectors operating. Along with that comes the, I would say, infrastructure. Of course, quite a lot of work is happening in India in developing that, and that certainly give a boost to construction and real estate developments. But there is a cost of funds going up. Interest rate is certainly going up. And it is also coupled with inflation. Though world across they will say the inflation is under control, it is a big challenge. And whether some parts are already under recession in Europe. But some parts are still challenges whether recession is there or recession is there or whether we overcome. But yet cost of funds is high. So with that cost of funds and inflation, how do we manage I would say an affordable cost or affordable construction? Well, there are superlative constructions which is different from what is an affordable housing. Couple of other areas which I would like is the, especially coming on digitization along with the technology. Without digitization, no industry can sustain. And I personally believe construction industry is also not different. And most of them have started adopting digitization, apart from the basic industry 4.0, digitization across the value chain. And in that process comes now, because constructions are by sitting anywhere to monitor the projects, the drones. Major developers, major industries, major project managements have started utilizing drones to look at real-time monitoring of the projects. Where we used to send people to sites to monitor the projects and developments. Today, by sitting at our own office through drones, we are able to. It is still a big challenge in India because it's still in infancy. But there is a lot of work is taking place in the industry. A lot of regulations already Ministry of Civil Aviation has taken care of. And of course, when we do all these things, there comes along with standards. And standards beyond the normal regulatory standards which affect the construction, which is NBSE and ECBC or NHRI, etc. There are new challenges which is coming, especially because air conditioning is associated with the construction industry very deeply. The other day we were talking of the construction industry, global warming, etc. coming. But we also had air conditioning, certain about chemicals which we used by creating global warming. Now that global warming has to be covered, so there are certain procedures, especially on the air conditioning industries coming up. So in my opinion, construction sector is one area where multiple challenges across the subsectors, technology as well as other compliances will drive drive everybody to, I must say that Indian construction industry globally also will certainly do quite a good. So I am sure these type of conferences will certainly give each stakeholder its value from attending and from imbibing that. With this, I conclude my talk and I thank each one of you for being here. And I must say that this conference certainly will give quite a large takeaway. As Mr. Pushkar said, this is the 12th session, 12th. I must say that you all will have, everyone will have large takeaway. And CII has got one more initiative in this Indian Green Building Council, which is very well accepted by the industry, government everywhere, and more than 10,000 square feet already has been under Indian Green Building Council. And I am sure you will hear much more than from me what the experts can say. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you. I now invite, let me see, Mr. Batik, sir.
Good morning, all. Thank you, Mr. Nandakumar. You started very humbly by saying that you're not from the construction and real estate field, but I think your address went pretty deep and extracted quite a few important aspects, not only to do with this conference and the topic that we're going to discuss today, but also with the overall sector. So thanks for that. I'm here to, I'm sure all of you have millions of things on your mind right now. There could be another place that you could be, hopefully not. And you're getting emails, you're getting calls. So my job is in the next 5 to 7 minutes to bring focus to the room for the day. Hopefully you will sustain it. You will find it interesting enough for what's to follow through the day to retain that focus. Because so I want to share with you the context and the meaning of what we have here, which is the topic of manager to advisor. Why this? Why manager to advisor? Why the sessions as we have planned them on cost, the sessions on ESG, the session on technology? Why these 3 sessions? Why not something else? There could be a million other things that we could be discussing, and all of them will be relevant, but why this? Looks very simple. I'm sure I don't need to explain to you the importance of the topic itself, that what does a manager do and what does an advisor do? So it's a quantum jump from being a manager, a good manager, to becoming an advisor. But when we were sitting down and scribbling what we want to do in this conference, we thought this was very simple, but at the same time extremely important. And Mr. Nandakumar also touched a lot of things today, and I'm sure you'll hear many such things today in terms of the headwinds being faced by the world coming out of COVID, global liquidity, crisis in Europe, this, that, the other. So I think because of all these reasons, because of all these headwinds and all these challenges, and at the same time, a country like India, as Mr. Nandakumar said, and I'm sure you'll hear from the others, there are huge amount of opportunities that exist in our country vis-a-vis where we are as a country economically, from a perspective of our growth, from a perspective of socially as we are statured. That's the opportunity which exists, which we need to leverage and exploit by becoming advisors in our capacity, whichever side of the table we sit. So projects, since most of us belong to the field of construction, project management. Now project management is not, as you would only say, for something that I and my colleagues do, which is project management as a service, but project management, I always said this, that for a project to happen, somebody's got to be the project manager. It's only in the last 25 odd years that there is a segment of providers like me and my colleagues who offer this as a service, but Either the owner has to become a project manager, or the designer has to become a project manager, or the contractor or the developer, whosoever it is, or somebody's got to manage the project, right? So, but projects are now, as we look around us, and which is a good problem to have, even if I can call it a problem, are becoming more complex. They are bigger, not necessarily and only in size, but in the complexity that they have, and also the 360-degree socio-economic impact that they have on what's around them, as you know, and also the impact that happens on them because of what's around, namely, say, infrastructure, the economics or the economy of a particular country or a location, the regulatory mechanisms, etc., etc. So, what we need is a bigger canvas of thought process to conceptualize, to plan, and take into account all these parameters within which are within that particular project, and the external parameters which impact that particular project or initiative. So that is why the shift, first it has to be a shift in mindset from becoming a manager to from being a manager to becoming an advisor, or a, and you know, often in the CBRE world we don't use advisor word as one word. We always put a pre-word to it, which is trusted advisor. And I think it's a bit of we're saying the same thing again, because in my mind an advisor has to be someone who you trust, otherwise they would not be your advisor, right? So trust is a big word over there. And also I think the advantage that being an advisor one carries is that you are able to become more strategic. You are operating while you're managing things at the tactical level, at the 10,000 feet level, but you're able to think, plan, conceptualize, talk about things at a 30,000 feet level as well, which is more holistic. And you're able to think of things from a 360-degree perspective and the impact of them on what you're dealing with. And most importantly, the difference I think between a manager and an advisor is that the advisor needs to put on the client's hat, has to be able to think about whatever that project or that initiative or that program is from the customer's perspective. And let me also put it in context here that since quite a few of us are from the service industry, everybody's got a customer. Now the customer, while you're sitting in your chair and thinking about this, if what I'm saying is resonating with you, is who's my customer? So everybody needs to think who's their customer. It necessarily doesn't mean somebody who you're offering a service to, you are offering a service to and you're getting a fee or whatever out of it. It could be your internal customers. You could be a part of an organization where you're enabling the growth of an organization with what you do. It is not a monetized transaction. There is no fee involved. There is no other transaction involved. But what you are doing is enabling the growth or the plan of the organization. So with this in mind, we thought if we need to share with the team today who's in the room as to how to become an advisor and what are the big levers that you can draw on to make that shift from becoming a manager to an advisor. So we thought that we have them right here. The first thing is, if you look at anyone, the manifestation of cost may be in different ways, but any project, for it to be successful, unless and until it is philanthropy, if it is a market-driven project, it needs to make sense of cost. It needs to bring some return on the investment, either directly or indirectly. It could have a social impact. It could have a direct economic impact on whosoever owns that project or is developing that project for their business needs, or even if it is for public use. So that is why we thought an advisor needs to keep in mind what is the lever of cost and how will they use the lever of cost to retain that role of being a trusted advisor. That's one. Number two is ESG. Mr. Nandakumar also spoke about, looking at projects from a more holistic perspective. And ESG, I think the pure culmination of environmental, social, and governance into this one three-letter word, I think is extremely powerful, because this enables you to start from the top and you can keep going down and get to any amount of details, and everything is going to be meaningful because it covers all these extremely important aspects across these three segments. So that's why we thought that if I need to become an advisor to whosoever it is, my internal stakeholders, internal customers, external customers, I need to make sure that ESG is a lever I draw upon to provide that advice to my customers. And the third, of course, is technology, because Mr. Nandakumar also spoke about drones and digitization, etc., etc. So I'm not going to go deep, because there's people who are infinitely more expert than me who are going to talk about this later. But that, I believe, is the third lever, because technology can get you there faster. Technology can make it more accurate, error-free, and also it can take away the mundane activities which can be taken care by technology, and at the same time it can then enable for all of us to become from managers to advisors, because everybody has 24 hours in the day. So imagine if technology enables you to free 1.5 hour, 2 hours from your day, taking away the mundane. You have that 1.5, 2 hours more to think more strategically, sit with your customer, whosoever it is, and say, hey, let's talk about what else can we do, what else can we bring to the table, what value can we add to whatever we are doing. I think we should do this. At times, in the role of a manager, we don't even have the mind space to think and talk about those kind of things. So technology, my favorite reason for enabling technology besides others is that it frees up time in my 24 hours and enables me to think more strategically as to how can I do more for whosoever is my customer. So with that, I'll stop here. I hope I have been able to sharpen your focus to what's to follow during the day, and I hope all of you enjoy what's to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bhatia, for setting the context for the day and letting our delegates know what is in it for them throughout the day. May I now request Mr. Nikhil Bhatia, Managing Director, Capital Markets and Head Western Region Operations CBRE, to please deliver a special address.
Very good morning, everybody. Thank you, firstly, for taking time out today. Sheshav, thank you for being our guest today. And often I understand very clearly from our dialogues how busy you are. So, I really appreciate you being here. Thank you. Mr. Nandakumar, Rohan, thank you. And very interesting conversations we've heard so far from Mr. Nandakumar on 250 subsectors and how challenging project management is. And when Gurjot, Dhairya, and I often speak, we say that we often copy the line of Mr. Dennis Whitley, who says that expect the best, plan for the worst, and be prepared for surprises. He wrote a beautiful book called The Winners and the Winning and the Psychological Reasons for Winning. So one of the things that we want to cover today is how strategic CBRE also has been over the last few years of being in India, over 2.5 decades, and what we've got written on this board, 1 billion square feet in India that our project management team has covered. So Gurjot, congratulations on that, and that's a substantial achievement and also shows where our country is headed. I'm going to talk a little bit about real estate and core real estate, and moving a little away from what our esteemed speakers have already covered. I'm going to talk about what's happening post the pandemic, post the COVID era. So once we've looked at the numbers very, very closely, and what we've seen is about 56.5 million square feet has got absorbed in India in 2022. This is a 40% increase from 2021. That's substantial and just shows the entire pan-India recovery, the acceleration of return to work, which is really propelled and has been the cause of this excessive 40% increase from the previous year to 2022. of which we've seen Maharashtra has absorbed about 9 million square feet between Bombay and Pune primarily. I want us to take 2 minutes away and visualize where our city is going, and let's take this forward to 2030. 2030, we're going to have the coastal roads in place. We're going to have the Trans-Harbour Sea Link in place. We're going to have a brand new airport. We're going to have metro lines 7A and all the others well opened and interconnecting our city. What does that mean? From Nariman Point in 15 minutes, we can get to New Bombay. We are going to see another BKC kind of development coming up in and around Uran, or where the Trans-Harbour Sea Link ends. It is evident, it is imminent, and that's what we need to plan for. We need to think a little out of the box and be prepared for what the city is moving towards. 2030 is going to have a very, very different global city in our very own Mumbai. And we have to be prepared for it. We're going to have the coastal lines. We're going to have a lot of development of tall buildings around the coastal areas. We're going to have transit-oriented development. We're going to have these tall buildings coming up near metro stations. We are going to have these all around the city. In any case, if we look at it statistically, 77% of the tall buildings are in our city of Mumbai. What does this mean? That we are basically going to only go up and probably get to the stage of 90% of the total tall rises in the country coming here. The other thing that we must mention over here is that in Mumbai, about 28,000 people stay in a 1 kilometer radius. So the density is 28,000 per square kilometer. So it is your biggest hub for this, and we need to be planned for this from a ESG compliance point of view, from a societal, from an environmental, and most importantly, an ethical and a governance point of view, because each of these buildings in certain locations are billion-dollar projects. We are seeing private equity also wanting to come in to only projects that are ESG compliant. My friend here, Shaishav, who heads Loda's development, has a fund, who heads Loda's Palava City and their entire rental business, has a fund alongside Bain and Ivanhoe Cambridge. These are two large giants, and I'm not going to take away the thunder, and I'm going to allow him to touch upon it a little bit. But these are two of the largest, global giants who've come and have set up a platform for industrial investments only for ESG compliant projects in India. So this is just showing he's taken the lead, he's been a pioneer in this, but it also shows the large institutions wanting to come in here and just follow the ESG processes. So including diversity is something we've started doing excessively in CBRE as well. Besides our RISE values, we are very particular to try and incorporate this, as all responsible organizations do. And we just feel that going forward, this is truly going to be a differentiator, and is already based on COP26 and so many other big conferences we've seen around the world, and especially in Glasgow, that this is clearly the flavor of the day and the flavor of the decade to come. Having said this, I just want to mention again that Mumbai is amongst the top 5 data center hubs in the world. We've seen with the advent and the rollout of 5G, we have approximately in India about 500 smartphone users, 500 million, I repeat, 500 million, and we have about 700 million internet subscribers. This clearly means that we are going to be not only in the top 5, but probably top 1 or 2 very soon in the next few years. I mean, we are not going to talk about gigabytes pan India. We're going to talk about megabytes to gigabytes only in Mumbai, because this is going to be the home for the data center hub in the country and in Asia and around the world. So we are poised in a very interesting Mumbai. I just want to say that residential, we covered office, 56 million square feet. I just want to touch upon residential. We spoke about tall buildings. In India, we absorb about 3 lakh square feet, 3 lakh units a year in residential, of which about 80,000, if I'm not wrong, or 81,000 are in Mumbai alone. This quarter in Mumbai, we've already seen about 40,000 square feet, 40,000 units getting absorbed. So these are very, very substantial numbers. And our city is poised towards a very fascinating 2030. And we as project managers, as CBRE, want to take the lead in being of assistance to all of you and making sure that we are an extension and a trusted advisor, like Gurjot said. Thank you very much, and I look forward to inviting Sheshav to please come in. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, CII and CBRE, for having me over. So I was just listening to the three speakers for the last 20 minutes, and I think they've covered pretty much everything about what's happening. So I was thinking to myself, how can I add value? And I thought, well, maybe make it more personal and talk in terms of how I see this topic of project management moving from just delivery of an asset, construction-wise, to becoming an advisor. Historically, we've always operated in silos. A team buys land, someone designs, you are asked then the construction team and the project management team, let's build it. Then we hand it over to the facility management team to now operate it and deal with the customer. And I think that paradigm has completely changed. It's also a very exciting time for those in the project management world because you have the opportunity to actually step up and think more integrated from start to end. And I'll give you an example of myself. I am an absolutely non-technical person, even though I have an engineering degree, but I had nothing to do with construction. I joined the Lodha Group in 2010 as the head of strategy and decided I didn't want to do strategy and consulting only because I was already at McKinsey. So why am I doing that? So I want to learn real estate, and I started from basically facility management and handing over flats to customers. Then I got into construction, and then over time into the entire value chain. And I recognized that I actually became very unique because I understood customer-backed what was needed from the start. And along the way, how to differentiate every project to make it unique. So that's the opportunity in front of the entire audience here, is how do you change the paradigm of being in silos and focusing only on, project management to basically thinking holistic and making a much more successful mark for yourself. So to make it even more real, let's take these three emerging trends, Mumbai specific, and what does that mean for you? So we talk about Mumbai and infrastructure, and Nikhil touched upon it, right? It's probably the most exciting time in the city today because what started 5 years ago, some reports I was reading, almost 2 lakh plus crores, I don't even know how many zeros that is been invested just in development of Mumbai's infrastructure. As Nikhil talked about, airports, coastal roads, metros, every road is being concretized or expanded. It's dramatic what is going to happen. Very soon, the entire city of Mumbai and the extended region, you should basically get connected between 30 and 60 minutes from one edge to the other edge. Now that has very significant implications for this region. Today, I had one of the projects called Palava City, which is, I think, mega township, hopefully by 2030, a city by itself. We have today about 200,000 people living out there. It's a great project, great quality of life, and we basically had great housing for the middle and upper middle class housing because it's changing the quality of their life. But now you take the Indian ethos, family first. You give great amenities, great environment, great quality of life, but you're only 30 minutes from any other part of the city because of the metro connectivity, road expansion. What's going to happen? Middle, upper middle, even luxury, at some point is going to move there because that's the quality of life they aspire for their family. So as a project manager, you have to start thinking today that I have to start thinking of my product and what I'm going to do has to cater to the consumer 5 years from today because it doesn't get built overnight. Let's take another example of, we set up the warehousing industrial platform, and we're looking to buy land in NCR. I happened to serve a client when I was at McKinsey in Gurgaon. And where the McKinsey office in Gurgaon was, I thought it was very remote. And then I went back about a few months ago, and that's like today in the heart of Gurgaon. And the expansion has happened 50 kilometers away now. That's where the warehousing parks are coming up. And the difference is the infrastructure that exists out there. The road, the highway infrastructure. Warehousing parks, which require large lands at affordable prices, are 50, 60 kilometers away from the city center. But unfortunately in Mumbai that doesn't happen because of the connectivity. But that's all going to change. So we have to start thinking in terms of which are these new hubs, new nodes that are going to come up, and how do we build. And our existing parks that are being built today need to be flexible enough to move to asset classes of the future. Now this is something a project head needs to start thinking about and making it valuable for the corporation as a whole. The second trend we talked about is ESG. It's amazing, after COVID, it's no longer a buzzword. It is the way of life. You will not be relevant unless you are ESG ready. And we're seeing this across every asset class. And I'll give you an example very close from here. We have an office development, the One Lodha Place. It's a 38-story building. We delivered it about a year ago. It's probably India's most ESG compliant building. And a lot of the product and what happened to it came from our project teams. In how do we change the spec as we were building it with one goal. You have to be the most ESG compliant building. And what's been the result? It's seen phenomenal leasing traction at rentals which are about 20% higher than the market. And this is not just us. Across Asia, I was reading a report that ESG buildings, green buildings, command 10 to 20% premium. Give you another example in residential. Again, I'll take Palava City just because of the scale. It's always been focused on being a smart city, being sustainable. And through the teams itself, water is a very important part. At the end of the day, everybody talks about the next World War will be on water rather than anything else, because it's a very precious resource. So of course you recycle 100% of the water, right? So we've put in the best technologies, all of that part. But the teams came up and said, well, the better way is, why don't we actually cut down consumption first? So basically sustainability through self-sufficiency. We have to cut down the amount of water we pull from the government sources, from the dams, because that's how you become sustainable. So work started at that point almost 7 years ago, and today Palava consumes the lowest amount of water per capita in urban India. This is a 7-year effort. But now this becomes a differentiator for us for life. Now this came as a thought from the technical teams. They didn't limit themselves only to saying, we'll build the best recycling technology. They said, we're going to first cut water, then after that, whatever gets consumed, we will recycle. So another great example. So what do these two examples tell you? Doing good is actually now the right thing, and more important for private corporations, it's also economically justified. So now you're getting a confluence of everything coming together in a very positive manner. The last trend that Nikhil talked about, and so did Mr. Naran and Gurmeet, around basically technology. It's changing everything we do today, and it started from COVID, this proliferation of data consumption, e-commerce, social media, etc. AI, I don't think any of us can even understand, at least I don't today, but when we talk to hyperscalers and other clients who are looking to set up data centers in some of our industrial parks, they're talking of requirements of 50 acres of land, 200 megawatts of power, numbers that are staggering. So now you get a chance to basically plan a project of low density consumption like warehousing with high FAR consumption like data center, co-locate it and make the project that much more viable. The other thing that's changing a lot is, because of hyperlocal e-commerce, is intercity warehouse, intracity. The Zeptos, the Swiggies, the Blinkits, etc. I mean, everyone is talking about 15 minutes, 10 minutes delivery. Food products need to be even more fresher. So this is a new asset class that's emerging in the city as an alternative to offices, We've recently acquired a land in Kurla just for doing in-city warehousing. We're going to see a huge proliferation. As someone who's a project manager in offices, this becomes a great way to study a new asset class and apply all the business learning, all the construction learning, and say, how do I make it relevant to in-city warehousing, because it has a lot of similarity. That suddenly makes you that much more valuable for yourself, for your client, and more relevant to your customer. So in summary, that's my personal experience. My objective today is to give some examples to say that broaden your horizon. Think in terms of you're not focused only on how do you construct the asset after you've got a drawing, right? Think how you're going to make the asset so much more relevant for keeping the customer in mind and future trends in mind. Thank you very much.
Mr. Daria, thank you very much for that keynote address. And now, ladies and gentlemen, in the presence of all our inaugural leaders, we will be releasing a report, a CII CBRE report on rise of tall buildings in India. So may I request everybody, all the leaders, to join us. So since we are talking about sustainability, the report is in a sustainable format, in a digital format. On your desk right now, you have the QR code which you can scan to download the copy of the report on your mobile phones. May I request all the inaugural leaders to please release the report by displaying the placard. Thank you. May I now request Dr. Nandakumar to please deliver the closing remarks.
Thank you, Pushkar, for this opportunity for closing remarks. Mr. Gurjal Bhatia, Nikhil Bhatia, Shahid Dharia, all delegates, press media. I must say that the three talks which the learned experts has given is really insightful. It's a very, very detailed, specific issues, which I am sure that will be deliberated in the coming sessions. I would like to speak certain few points, though which is covered in the ESG. Directly coming is one is the safety aspect, because safety is one area where it is hidden in the societal. But when it comes to whether the construction agency or developer or the user or the government, safety is the most. It's not only in construction area, any sector which you go, safety. So we need to certainly practice that safety across the value chain. That's the biggest responsibility each one of us has to imbibe and practice. And I think all the civil construction companies, development companies, they all have taken up this, because safety has, over the years, has gained much more momentum, especially in developing countries compared to the developed countries. Compared to other areas, certainly is taken care. So my request is each one of us should take very deep insight into what are the safety aspects. What we consider as the non-safety is the one which is going to be opening up. So it has to be a holistic approach to that. With this, I conclude my talk and wish each one of you great takeaway from this conference, and also to organizers. Thank you for collaborating with the CII, and I must say that CII does wonderful job to Indian industry, Indian economy over the last 125 years. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nandakumar. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we come to the close of our inaugural session, and I will request Mr. Gurjot Bhatia to please felicitate all our inaugural leaders with a small token of appreciation and a memento. Requesting Gurjot sir to please felicitate Dr. K. Nandakumar. Mr. Seshav Daria. Mr. Nikhil Bhatia. Mr. Roshan Kumar. Now may I request Mr. Sunil Golboli to please join us on stage and felicitate Mr. Gurjot Bhatia. Thank you. A big thank you to all our eminent panelists here for the inaugural session. Ladies and gentlemen, please a round of applause. Now we break for a 10 minutes tea break, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll convene again sharp at 11:25. Big round of thanks to all our partners today, Kirby Building Systems, the gold partners. We also like to thank Listen Lights, Shri Prefab Private Limited, who are our gold partners, the silver partners, Asava Insulation, silver partners, Elevate Group, and Interact.